Let's go on to Chestermere Rockview, followed by Calgary Home.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the last election, the Premier made a fairly black and white promise to Alberta parents and students. 50 new schools, 70 renovated schools started and completed this term, period. Well, Mr. Speaker, we're nearly halfway through this term, and it seems like the government made a promise to families that it cannot keep. Surely the government would never intentionally mislead parents and families during an election campaign. So I ask the Minister of Education, with respect, how many of these 50 new projects and 70 renovated projects that his government promised this term are currently under construction?
Mr. Speaker, you know, the constant criticism we get from across the way on the amount of capital that we are building or aren't building is a little bit troubling.
Please continue, Honourable Minister of Education, or are you done?
I'm done.
So, we're going to have a discussion about heckling and how far you want this to go on. Honourable Member, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll ask my colleagues to give the member a chance to answer this question, because I think it's one we deserve answer to. We have done the research, and near as we can tell, of the 28 new schools announced since the election, precisely 0 are currently under construction. Nada. Zilch. Bagel. Given that it takes 3 years to build a school, and given the clear promise that these projects would be started and completed by 2016, is this minister going to continue to ride on the coattails of the former premier, or is he going to honour his government's commitments?
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, I think it's pretty clear we are honouring our commitments, and particularly when it comes to education. This premier made a commitment for many things, including reinstating $107 million in funding, which she did, getting an ATA deal, which she did, a number of other items, passing the Education Act, which we've done. We've got capital on the way. Like I said earlier this week, and like I said last week, there's currently either just finished or underway 70 projects. There's another 30 that we announced in the spring. There's a number more coming here, I believe, by the end of this calendar year, if we can get the right ducks lined up. And there'll be more coming in the spring. I think I'm happy to be accountable for what we do, but it's really difficult to be accountable in 2013 for something we're doing in 2016.
Honourable Member.
I will simplify. Given that during the election campaign, this government promised 50 new schools and 70 renovations this term as a commitment by this government, can the Minister of Education tell us today how many of those projects are underway that his government promised?
Hear, hear.
Mr. Speaker, stay tuned to ask me that question in 2016. We're going to have a number of schools built, and we're going to have more than 120 projects well underway or built by that time during this term. I hate to point out the obvious, but there was a number of projects that the ground was turned after the election that could have easily been cancelled if someone else had won the election and didn't want to take on P3 projects. So the question I have for the honourable member across the way, who's asking for schools, I think it's 11 of their members now have asked for schools. Immediately after the front benches say, don't take on debt, don't do P3s. We're building too many schools. Their members behind them stand up and ask for a school. Well, will they take those schools if they're P3s?